Okay, welcome to video lesson 3, and this is module. We are still in module 2. Now, I want to believe that you did enough practice on setting up company preferences, what we covered in the previous lesson. Today, we're going to dive into something totally different, but very, very important. We are still on the settings. Now, remember, doing the right settings for your company, it's very, very important. It will give you a smooth operation when you're using the system. So this is very, very important. If you don't have the right setup, it's going to be very, very tricky for you to perform some of the things that you might need to perform. So this is very, very important. Now, like I promised in the previous lesson, today I want to show you something that we haven't touched on before. Very, very important. And I want to show you how you use them, why they are important, and how they work. Now, before we dive into all that, I want to explain something, a concept that's very important because it will help you understand what we are about to dive into. Now, when it comes to QuickBooks, you can install QuickBooks into a given computer, which we call servers, and then have other users be able to access your QuickBooks company from that one computer without necessarily having to install QuickBooks in their own computers. Let me explain. Let's say you're running a company and you have several accountants. You can have QuickBooks in that company installed in one computer, which we call server. And then you can have all other computers that are going to be used by any other person in the company. It could be the cashier, it could be people at the back room receiving orders, or any other person within the company. You can have all those other computers connected to that one computer on which QuickBooks system has been installed. Now, the computer on which you install QuickBooks, we call it server. Those other computers that are accessing QuickBooks from the server, we call them workstations. So you can have different users using the QuickBooks system to access the company file from their computers without necessarily installing QuickBooks from their computers. All you need to do is have a server, that's one computer where you install QuickBooks, and all other computers are going to access the QuickBooks company file from that one major computer. So the computer that you install QuickBooks on, we call it server. Those other computers that are accessing your company file or the QuickBooks system from the server, we call them workstation. Now, what that means is you can have like 10 people using QuickBooks in your company at any given moment. For instance, you can have an accountant trying to run some accounting operations using QuickBooks. At the same time, you can have someone at the back room receiving orders, okay, goods that you've purchased, so receiving inventory or orders from the company, and they are still using the QuickBooks system. At the same time, you can have a cashier selling, still using the QuickBooks system. So what that means is the QuickBooks system of the company file is being accessed by a number of people or by several people doing different things at any given moment. Okay, now in such a case, it's very, very important to set up QuickBooks in such a way that it allows different people to access different sections of the company file or of the QuickBooks system, performing different jobs at any given moment. That is totally different from having QuickBooks being accessed by only one person at any given moment. So if you're going to have, and this is normally what happens, you're going to have QuickBooks installed in the main server, and different people performing different jobs are going to need to use the QuickBook and access different information or perform different operations using the QuickBooks. You're going to set up QuickBooks in a way that it allows a multi-user mode, meaning it will allow different users performing different jobs be able to access the company file and execute those jobs effectively. So to do that, I want to show you how you set up your system to allow multi-user mode, meaning one company file is being used and accessed by different users, and they are all performing different jobs. So I want to show you how you set up multi-user mode. If you work in a company with several accountants, you have cashiers, you have procurement, staff at the back room receiving goods, then that means your QuickBooks system is being accessed by different people at any given moment. They are performing different jobs. So when I set up the system to allow that kind of operation, we call it the multi-user mode. So how do you set up multi-user mode? Now, to do that, you go to File, and then you come down to Switch to multi-user mode. Currently, the moment you install QuickBooks, it's set up into a single user mode, meaning only one person can access and use QuickBooks at any given moment. You cannot have several people accessing the QuickBooks and using it for performing different operations at a go. So with the single user mode, only one person can access QuickBooks and perform given operations. But practically, that is not what happens in a company. You're going to have different people accessing the company file, performing different jobs at any given moment, and so you want to set your system to operate in multi-user mode. I want to show you how you do that. So you go to File, you come here and you switch to multi-user mode. So just click Switch to multi-user mode, then I'll give it some time. So just to clarify and to make sure that just a minute, you have opened the company file in multi-user mode. For additional users to access this company file, you must first set up them as users. So notice here, we are telling the system, we've activated the system to allow different users to use it at any given moment. We don't have different users here. So that's why it's telling you that now that you want to have multi-user mode, meaning different users accessing QuickBooks to perform different operations, then you're gonna need to add new users, because currently our system has only one user. Multi-user mode means we have several people who can use this system. So it's asking you, do you want to set up users now? You get to say no, but we'll come back later. I'll show you how to set up users. So just click no, then I'll close this, and then I'll expand this. What do you notice here? It's saying QuickBooks accountant multi-user admin. So currently I am the admin, you are the admin because you create the Kanban file. So currently it's the admin who is logged in, but it's in a multi-user mode, meaning someone else can log into this system, assuming that our current computer is the server and we have other computers connected to this server. We can have cashier or someone at the procurement backroom accessing the QuickBooks to receive items, okay, because it's in multi-user mode. So it will indicate it's in the multi-user mode, and currently whoever is logged in, it is the admin. Now, just to make sure that you get this, multi-user mode lets more than one person work with your Kanban file at the same time. Okay, it lets procurement be able to access the Kanban file and do their procurement operations. It allows the accountant to be able to access the Kanban file and do their accounting operations. It allows the cashier to be able to access the Kanban file and be able to sell. So all these people are accessing QuickBooks. They're performing different operations. So multi-user mode allows more than one person work with your company file. Now, on the other hand, the single user limits access to your Kanban file to one user at a time. If other people are working in the or they have to access the company file, then the person logged in at the moment, they have to log out. For instance, let's switch back to single user. So go to file, then I come and click switch to single user mode. Give it some time. Now what happens is if I am you can now use this single user mode, click OK. Now if I am using this system right now, and let's say that I am the accountant in this company called JobTech. If we receive goods at this present moment, it means at the backroom the procurement staff cannot receive goods and use the same system because the system is set up in single user mode. So if they try to access the Kanban file, the system will not accept that. I will be required to stop or log out and stop using the system for the procurement staff to be able to use and access the company file. So we cannot be using this system several people at a go. So for this system to work for everyone, such that the accountant can use it, the cashier can use it, the procurement staff can use it at any given moment, we need to switch back to multi-user mode. So we go to file, then we come to switch to multi-user mode. Notice here it's not indicating multi-user mode because currently it's a single user. Let's go to file. I'm gonna have to switch to multi-user mode. Then I'll give it time to switch to multi-user mode, allowing several people to use the company. And there we are. So I'm gonna say no because we don't want to create users at the moment, though we shall do that one later on. So click no. Then I'm going to close this. Then I'm going to expand this. And now in this mode, it means the procurement staff can access the system and receive goods at the back room. It also means the cashier can be selling product and services in the front room, and it means the accountant can also be running some accounting operations, and the owner of this business at their office can also access and do some company operations using the QuickBooks. So that's the purpose of switching from a single user mode to a multi-user mode, and that is how you do the switch. Now, having said that, you might wonder, so if that is the case, if QuickBooks can operate in a multi-user mode, why would anyone want to be able or want to switch to single user mode? Why is single user mode important? Why can't we by default use QuickBooks in multi-user mode? Now, I want to explain why at a certain time you need to switch to single user mode. Now, some tasks cannot be done in a single user mode. In a multi-user mode. These tasks include I'm saying that some tasks can only be done in a single user mode. In other words, there are certain tasks you cannot perform when QuickBooks is in multi-user mode as it is at the moment. You need to switch back to single user mode to perform those tasks. So what are some of those tasks? File operations like backing up. When you want to do a backup of data in QuickBooks, you cannot perform backup of data if QuickBooks is at the present moment in multi-user mode. You need to switch to single user mode to be able to perform backup. You cannot also not export data from maybe a certain programs to QuickBooks if the QuickBooks is in multi-user mode. For you to be able to export data, you need to switch to single user mode for the QuickBooks to be able to do that. So that's why single user mode is very, very important. Now, there are also some changes you cannot make. Like if you want to delete items in the QuickBooks, you cannot delete items if at the present moment you're operating QuickBooks in multi-user mode. You need to switch to single user mode to be able to delete item lists. Deleting item lists could mean you want to delete some items or some inventory that you've received that you no longer use. So you cannot perform that operation unless QuickBooks is in a single user mode. So that's why single user mode becomes very, very important. Another task that you cannot perform in multi-user mode that will require you to switch to single user mode to be able to execute it is certain things like setting up finance charges. That could be credit card charges and all that kind of stuff. So you cannot set those ones up unless you are operating in a single user mode. So single user mode is very important because there are certain operations that I've listed for you and many others that you cannot perform until or unless you are operating in single user mode. Right. So here's the thing. Single user mode also makes time consuming tasks to go faster. There are certain tasks that you want to perform with the QuickBooks, and some of them they are very time consuming. If you're operating in multi-user, it's going to take a ton of time to perform given tasks. So if you want QuickBooks to execute those tasks faster, then you need to switch to single user mode, and that only enable QuickBooks system to perform those tasks faster. So what are some of those tasks? If you have a big report you want to run, if you run it in multi-user, it's going to take a ton of time to be able to run that report. So to have that report run faster, you need to switch to single user mode. So big reports, you run them in single user mode. That way the system will run the report faster. So the key to understand here is if the QuickBook file is being accessed by several or a number or multiple people in your company, then you want to switch it or activate the multi-user mode. At any given moment, if you want to import data or if you want to do backup, then you need to switch from multi-user mode to single user mode to be able to perform those operations. And I've shown you how to switch from multi-user mode to single user and how to switch from single user to multi-user. So that's very, very important. Make sure you get it right. Now, let's now move on to something else. I want to point out something that we call the accountant copy and why it's important and how we use the accountant copy. Now, for QuickBooks Accountant Edition, you're going to find the accountant copy. Now, in other versions of QuickBooks, remember we have QuickBooks Pro, we have QuickBooks Premier and other versions. Depending on the version of QuickBooks, you may not find some of these features. So we're using an advanced QuickBooks software, which is QuickBooks Accountant 2012. Probably may not find some of these features in QuickBooks Pro or QuickBooks Enterprise or QuickBooks Premium. So it will depend again on the version of QuickBooks that you're using. Some versions have limited features. Other versions, like what we are using, are very advanced features. And that's why we're using this one, so that you can learn all those advanced features. So now, let's go to accountant copy and then I will explain what it is and what it does. So how do you access accountant copy? You go to File and then check for accountant copy. Let's see, we go to File, accountant copy. Let's see if, so that we can see accountant copy here. file, new, open, backup, yeah, create a copy, close company, utilities. Here is accountant's copy. Now let's just let me just explain what this is. Now, accountant's copy allows your accountant to make some changes or adjustments to your books of accounts while still allowing you, the owner of the business, to keep accessing those books of account on daily basis so that you can handle day-to-day operations. Now, you have installed QuickBooks in your company. You're the owner of the business, using the system on a daily basis, but you want also to be able to allow the accountant to access the books of account and perform his job. So the accountant's copy feature enable the accountant to be able to work on books of accounts and at the same time allowing you to use those books of accounts on daily basis, so both of you can work on the books of accounts at the same time. That's where accountant's copy comes in. Now, it basically allows both of you, you and your accountant, to work independently. Once that means you can work on the books of accounts to run your daily business operations. At the same time, the accountant also has access to books of accounts to perform some of the accounting operations that he wants to perform. So with the accountant's copy, it will allow him to access those books of accounts, at the same time allowing you to access those books of accounts. And what happens is, once the accountant has completed whatever is doing the books of accounts, you can now update your books of account to see the changes that the accountant has made in the books of accounts. So it enables both of you to work independently on the books of accounts. So let me point out this. The accountant can be able to make changes on the book of accounts. Once those changes have been made, you can then import those changes into your QuickBooks files. So it's like they'll be working on the background. You will not be restricted from accessing your books of accounts, but good to have your accountant working on the background, making some changes and updates on the book of account. When they have done that, you can then import the data and see the update they have made on the books of accounts. Now, in which case or scenario is that really applicable? When it comes to your accountant working the books of accounts, they could be working on, and they should be working on the book of accounts over earlier dates. Let's say, for instance, we are on, again, July, and your accountant wants to access some books of accounts of June. At the same time, you are also using the books of accounts currently in the month of July. Accountants copy enable them to access books of accounts for June, while at the same time allowing you, the owner of the business, to be using the same books of accounts for the current month of July. Once the accountant is through with the books of accounts for June, then you can import the changes that have occurred. So for accountant's copy to work, the accountant should be working on an earlier date, okay, allowing you to keep handling daily operations of your business. What that means is he cannot be working on the books of accounts of the same month or in the same date that you are using the books of accounts. It has to be an earlier date. it has to be an earlier date. So that's very, very important to note. It has to be an earlier date. Now, if accountant has to be making those changes on the daily operations, then your access into QuickBooks account will be restricted. So basically what you're saying is that the accountant has to be using books of accounts of an earlier date. You cannot both of you access same books of account same day. No, it has to be working on books of accounts of an earlier date. Once it's done, you can import the changes that are occurring. So you basically come to accountant copy, and then you can go to client activities. We have client activities. We have convert account copy into a file. So let's see, open and convert transfer files. Okay, this one just gives you an overview. Let's close that one. Let's open our job to the company. Let's get back to where we were. You have opened company file MultiUser Mode for additional users. We're not going to access users right now, so just close this one, expand this one. So just explain this feature called accountant copy. Basically, it allows you and your accountant to access books of accounts. That means the accountant can access an earlier date books of account and make some changes, at the same time allowing you to really use the books of account for the current date to run your daily operations. So it creates that independence, or rather, yeah, that independence whereby your accountant can work on the books of account independently, at the same time allowing you to use your books of accounts to run daily operations. So that's what this feature is all about. Now, now that I've explained that, what I want us to do now, I want to show you how to set up users, right? Currently, we only have admin in this account, and for you to be able to use the MultiUser Mode, then you need to have several accounts for different users in your system, so that different users can access the QuickBooks file, and then you can all run different operations in QuickBooks. So I'm going to show you how to create users and how to accord them different access rights to different access levels into your QuickBooks. So I want to show you how that one works. So let's create user accounts so that we have multiple user accounts in this system. So now to do that, you go to company right here, click there, and then you come down to set up users and password. Move along that way, or rather along that line, and then click set up users. And here we are. Currently we have only the admin, you, when you created the company file. So we have admin, and it's indicated that admin is logged on. So what we're gonna do here is, I want us to create 3 or 2 more users. I'll leave you to create more, but let's do 2. So what I need to do right now, we need to come here and click use add user. I want to add a new user, so click add user. Here we are. Let's enter their name. Let's say their name is let's have Moses. Moses is our cashier. Let's enter password. Now we're gonna enter 000 for the password. 00000, 4 zeros for the password. Let's confirm the password here again, 0000. Now That's it. Then you click next. Access for user Moses. Now we want to customize the system and determine the access rights of Moses, what he can access in the system and what he cannot access. And this is where you set it up. Now, what do you want this user to have access to? All areas of QuickBooks. This is for the admin. They can access all the areas of QuickBooks. But for Moses, let's assume Moses is a cashier. So we want Moses to access only those features that have to do with the selling and the handling of customers, but not deep information and confidential information in the system. So we're going to give him selected areas of QuickBooks. That's what we want him to access. So we're going to click next, and then we need to be able to determine what those areas are. We have sales and accounts receivable. Access to this area includes activities such as entering invoices, sales receipts, sales orders, receiving payments, and writing estimates and statements. It also includes access to customer sender and customer receivable reports. What level of access to sales and account receivable activity do you want to give this user? We want to give him, we can give him no access. Currently it's no access. Or we can give him full access and to be able to access all those areas. Or we can give him selected access. And in selected access, we can allow him to create transaction only, or we can allow him to create and print transaction, or we can allow him to create transaction and create reports. So you determine based on what is the job of that user, you determine what the user is supposed to do. Okay, so you can allow him to create transactions only. That means he cannot create reports. Leave that onto the accountant. And that means he cannot print up transactions, right? So let's give him create transaction only, and then you go next, purchase and accounts payable. In this section, access to this area includes activities such as entering and paying bills, entering credit card charges, and entering purchase orders. It also includes access to the vendor sender and accounts payable reports. What level of access to purchase and accounts payable activity do you want to give this user? Again, you can determine the level of access. You can give them full access or you can give them selected access. You determine, depending on the job of that person, what areas of QuickBooks they should be able to access and what areas they shouldn't. Let's say create transactions only. Then you go next. Checking and credit cards. Access to this area includes common banking activities such as writing and printing checks, making deposits, and entering credit card charges. What level of access to checking and credit card activity do you want to give this user? Again, here you can determine what you want the user to be able to access. This includes things like printing checks, making deposits, entering credit cards, and all that. So let's say selected access, create transactions only. They cannot print checks. So we go next. Inventory. Access to this area includes activities such as entering purchase orders, receiving goods, that is items, adjusting inventory, and running inventory reports. Again, what do you want these Moses to be able to do? Again, you can give them selected access or we can give them no access at all. And then you can leave this one to the procurement officer or the staff at the back room to be able to handle this. So give them no access and then you go next. time tracking. Access to this area includes activities such as entering timesheets, importing and exporting time data, and running time reports. Let's give him no access to that. Payroll, we give them no access. He's not the, we leave this on to the main accountant, so you go next. Sensitive accounting activity. Now these are very sensitive accounting activity, and these things includes transfer of funds between accounts, making general journal entries, and doing online banking. We don't want to give these Moses access to any of this, so we go next. Again, this sensitive financial information, this area gives access to QuickBooks reports. It overrides any other reporting restriction placed on this user. If you give them, this is very important, if you give them full access, any other restrictions that have been set before, remember we've said that they cannot access reports. If you give them full access, it will override any other restriction we've meant. They'll be able to access the report that you said they shouldn't access, right? So this is very important. It will override any other restrictions you meant before. So Moses is not supposed to access sensitive financial reports, so no access. We click next. Changing or deleting transactions. Do you want this user to have the ability to change or delete transaction in the area of their access? We've given them certain areas of access. The question is, do you want them to be able to change transaction, what they do it, once they have done it, or even delete transaction? Now, let me point out something here. If you've walked into supermarkets and you've bought something, and then the cashier makes a mistake and they want to either reverse a transaction they had already made or change something, you probably noticed oftentimes they are not able to do that. And what happens is that they call someone who comes in, logs into their account, then allow them to make that change. Why? Because the way the system is set up is such that once they end a transaction, they are not allowed to reverse it, delete it, or alter that transaction. And these are what you are calling the user access rights. So if you don't want this cashier to be able to alter any transaction when they do it, you say no. If you say yes, they'll be able to reverse any transaction they have done. So we say no. Do you want this user to have the ability to change or delete transactions in the area they have access to? No. Should this user also have the ability to change or delete transactions that were recorded before closing date? If you give them this access to be able to alter or change anything, you also need to point out whether they can access and make changes on any transaction that took place. Should this user also have the ability to change or delete transactions that were recorded before the closing date? So the system wants to know, do they have, or do you want to give them access to make changes on transactions that were recorded before the closing date? Okay, so you don't want them to have that. Remember something I pointed sometimes back when we were doing in a session back when we were doing company preferences, where we talked about setting date and password so that someone cannot alter books of accounts that have already been closed. This is it. So if you don't want to have this user be able to make changes on transactions that took place in books of account that have already been closed, you want to give them no access. They will not be able to alter that. So here we're gonna say no. We don't want them to be able to delete. This is just a cashier. They're not going to be able to delete or alter any transaction they have already done. What they can do is if a case happens whereby they want to alter some change, then they call the right person, just like you see it happen in the supermarket. A cashier does a transaction, you want the transaction reversed or they want to make some changes, they have to call someone who comes and logs in and allows them to make that change. Why? Because they don't have the rights to make that change. So in this case, we give them no. Of course, if they cannot alter anything, then obviously they cannot alter anything that took place sometimes back before the close date. So go next. And what you see here is QuickBooks will show you what this user has access to and what they don't have access to. You're finished setting up this user's access rights and password. Below is a summary of these users' access rights. Click the finish button to complete. So where you have Y, it's a yes. Where you have N, it's a no. So that means they don't have privilege to do that. So sales and accounts receivable, yes, they can handle that, but they cannot print it and they cannot check reports. Purchase and accounts payable, yes, they can access it, but they cannot print it and they cannot access reports. Checking and credit accounts, yes, they can handle that, but they cannot print it. Inventory, they don't have access to inventory, they cannot access tracking time, they don't have access to employees and all other reports right there. So we have customized what they can access and what they cannot access. And now we can finish. So click finish. Now you previously instructed QuickBooks to log in automatically as the admin user for the following applications. You may want to choose a different user for the automatic login user or modify the access rights for the user application by going to. So basically, because we didn't have multiple users, QuickBooks would automatically log in admin every time we open this company file. Now that you have several users, you need to set up QuickBooks so that it does not log in the admin automatically. Why? If it logs in admin automatically, it will allow another person who's not the admin to be able to log in and access information they shouldn't access. So what we need to do is QuickBooks telling us that we may need to go and modify the setup such that QuickBooks does not log in admin automatically. Instead, it will ask on the login screen the name of the person who wants to log in and their password to determine who is logging in. Is it Moses, is it the admin, or any other user? So for this message, you click OK. Here we are. So we have a new user called Moses. We can add one more user and then I will let you be able to add more users. So let's add one more. So I'm gonna go to add user and let's call this guy John. John password's gonna be 1111. We are entering simple password that we cannot forget, because if you forget it, you'll not be able to log in. 1111. Click next. John, we're going to give John is our accountant, so you're gonna pick external accountant. That means John can access all areas of QuickBooks except sensitive customer data such as credit card numbers. Any other area of QuickBooks, John is our accountant, so depend on him. So we are giving him full access except for very sensitive information. So we click next. And are you sure you want to give John access to all areas of QuickBooks except customer and credit card numbers? QuickBooks wants to know whether you actually want to do that, because that gives John access to all QuickBooks information. And you want to be very careful when you're giving people full access. You say yes, that's what you want. And then you just click finish. And that's it. So John access virtually anything except credit card information. But remember, you can always come to John and click edit and edit this information here, maybe the name and the password, and let's end it. Let's give John password 2222. We also want to 2222. We click next and we want to change this. Initially we had given John full access to all the areas of QuickBooks. Now we want to limit John's access. So it's not going to be able to access everything. We're going to pick selected areas of QuickBooks. Now, your accountant operates in this with this privilege. They can access everything except credit card numbers. You, the owner of business, operates from here. As admin, you can have access to all QuickBooks system. Any other person, you give them selected access depending on where they are working from. Are they at the back room receiving items, or are they the cashiers? So you give them limited access. So let's give John limited access. Sorry. So we go next, and sales and account receivable, we want John to have full access to that. Then we go next. We have purchase and account payable. We want to give John full access to that. We go next. We have checking and credit. They have no access. And then we go, let's see, activities such as writing, printing checks, no access. So we go next. Inventory. John's gonna be in the back room receiving goods as a procurement staff, so they're gonna need to have full access to that. Then next, tracking time. Let's see, entering timesheets, importing and exporting time data, running time reports. That's not sensitive, so we're gonna give John full access to that. Then next, payroll. He is not our accountant, so John is not gonna be handling payroll. Gonna limit his access to no access. Next, sensitive accounting. No, John is not going to handle sensitive account information, so gonna give no access. Sensitive financial reporting, no access. Changing and deleting. Yes, John can have alter some transactions when they are done, but it's not, we're not going to allow him to change any or delete transactions that were recorded before the closing date. Anything that have been recorded before the closing date, no, we're not going to give him access to that. So we go next, and here we are. So what you can notice is John has different access rights. They have sales and accounts receivable. They have access to everything. Purchase and accounts receivable. They have access to everything. Checking and credit cards. They don't have single access. Inventory. John is going to be at the background receiving goods from the suppliers. So they have full access. Tracking time. They have full access. Payroll. John is not our accountant, so they're not going to be able to access the payroll or any other sensitive information. But hey, John will be able to delete transactions. Okay, so they have a yes access. And then you click finish. And here we have John, and then we have Moses. So that is how you enter new users. And that means now QuickBooks can operate in multi-user mode. That means it can allow John to be accessing the system or company file from the back room as a procurement staff, and we can have Moses, who is the cashier, operating in the front store handling customers, and we can have the admin, who is you, the owner of the business, working from your office, being able to access everything. So in this case, if we have all these three users operating, accessing QuickBooks, performing different operations, then we will need to have that QuickBooks operating in multi-user, and that's where multi-user mode comes in. So that is it. You have now your users. We have the admin who's logged in, we have John, and then we have Moses. And you can delete any user you want by just selecting the user, and then you click delete, and the user will be gone. But remember, if you log into this system as John, then you cannot delete users. You are limited to what you can do. But right now we are logged in as admin, so we can delete users, we can change, edit users, we can add users. Only admin is allowed to add users, edit users, delete users. But any other user with limited access, they cannot do most of these things. So let's view Moses. I'm going to click view user, and then you can see the access rights of Moses, and then I can click leave. So that's how you add more users. So let's close this. There we are. We've now added new users. Now I want to point out something before we wrap up this lesson. So now that we have more users, every time we want to quit, or every time I want to quit QuickBooks, I need to log out. When I log out, QuickBooks will close my account as admin, and any other person who comes and want to log in, they will need to be able to identify themselves. Is it John, or is it Moses, or is it any other user that you have included? So let's see how that one works. Now to log out, I'm gonna need to go to, let's see, file, and let's see, close company or log off. So I'll click close company, and that's it. So if I open, there you are. So what do you notice? You now have a login screen. The system wants to know, is this John or is this admin? Remember, we didn't give admin password, which is very, very tricky. Admin should always have a password. So let's see, let's assume that we are admin here. Let me just click OK. And we've logged in because admin didn't have password. So we need to set password for the admin so that other users cannot just access the system as admin. So let's set password for admin. We're going to go to company, and then you come to, let's see, you come to where setup users and password, and then you click setup users. Then I can click admin, and then I can edit the user, and then I can set password. Now I'm not going to set password for the admin, because if you happen to forget the password as an admin, you will never be able to open this QuickBooks file. So if you're going to set up password, be very careful that you always remember it. Now to avoid that challenge as we move on, we're not going to, in this lesson, I'm not going to set up password for me as an admin, because if I happen to forget, then I'll not be able to log in. You can determine for yourself if you want to set up password as admin, but make sure you write that password somewhere so you never forget. Otherwise, tomorrow when you come to log in and you forget your password, you'll not be able to log into the system. So in this case, I'm going to just close. Then I'll close this one. So I'll log out. Let's go to file, and then let's log out. Then we are going to log in as Moses and see what happens. Currently, I can see all the features right here. I'm going to come in and log in as Moses, and then let's see whether I'll be able to run different operations that would take admin rights to do it. So we go to file. I'm logging off as admin currently. It's the admin who is logged in. So I'm going to log off as admin. So I'll go to company log off, and into it recommends backing up. I'm going to say no. So log off, and now here I am. I want to open the company. Let's click open, and then you have the login screen. Now I'm going to log in as Moses. So remove the admin, and then I'm going to log in as Moses. So type in Moses, and we give Moses password 0000. I'm gonna click OK. So we are logging in as Moses, and here we are. So now I have logged in as Moses. I can close that one. I have logged in as Moses. Now let's see whether as Moses I can access banking information, like write a check. So let's click write a check. Okay, seems like I can write a check. Okay, let's see. Let's see whether I can print a check. Here you are. Now what do you notice? You need printing permission under checking and credit cards to perform this action. Ask your QuickBooks administrator to grant your permission. I am not allowed as Moses to be able to print check because I don't have that access right. Remember when we were setting up the system, we didn't allow Moses to be able to print check. So now those access rights are in full force. So Moses cannot print check. I wanted to point that out. So the access that you give any given user, there are certain operations they cannot perform in QuickBooks. If I log in as admin, I will be able to print check. So Moses cannot print check, and there are a lot of other issues that Moses cannot do, a lot of other operations that Moses cannot perform. Why? They are not the admin and they don't have those rights to perform certain things. So this is why setting up users is very important. Accord the user's access level depending on what you want them to allow in the system to access in the system and what you don't want them to access in the system. And this will secure your system and information, data, and company files. That's why QuickBooks is very, very important. It ensures the security of your data, company file, customer information, and other confidential reports. So when you set up QuickBooks, you have an admin, and then the rest of the users, you can give them different access rights depending on what you want them to be able to access and what you want them not to be able to access. So this is what you're going to do in this lesson. I want you to practice. We learned how to switch from single mode to multi-user mode. Learned how to switch between single user mode to multi-user mode. I explained to you why that is important. I explained to you why accountant copy is important, and you've learned how to set up users. I want you to add more users and practice and get good at setting up users and give them different access rights. Make sure if you're going to use password, there are passwords that you can remember so you can log in as one of the users and see the access rights that you have into the QuickBooks systems. Now, here's a fair warning. If you're going to set up password for your admin login, be very careful. Do not forget that password. If you know you're going to forget the password, please don't set password. Leave the admin without a password. That will allow you to be able to log in and you don't have to remember any password, because if you do set up a password of the admin and forget the password, you will never be able to open your QuickBooks file. You will be required now to set up another company. Okay, so that's going to be very tricky. So my recommendation, do not set up user or rather admin password. Just leave it open. For the rest of the users, you can set up password, because even if you forget the password, it doesn't really affect your ability to use this company file. You can even delete them as the admin and create other users. So right now, I want you to add 3 more users into your system. Okay, add 3 more users to your system, set different access rights, and then practice to see whether those access rights are in full force and how they are working. And then in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to handle chart of accounts as we dive into other areas of QuickBooks. We might even prefer to first deal with how to handle inventories. So for now, practice what you've done. Add 3 more users of your own. In fact, let's delete the user that you have. I want you to add 3 more of your own. So let's delete the current users that you have. Let's go to company. We're gonna come to setup users. Let's delete our users here. I'm gonna delete John, so I'll click John, and I'm going to delete John as a user. Okay, so I want you to do that. I want you to, all right, what just happened? Let's see. Delete user. You don't have permission to, okay, why is it that you don't have permission to do that? Again, I'm Moses. Moses doesn't have the permission to delete any user here, so that's why I cannot do that. Let's see whether as Moses I can view John, view user. Again, I don't have the permission to view this user. So notice how the permissions are, or the access levels are in full force. As Moses or John, I cannot do a lot of things here. I'm logged in as Moses, so I am limited to what I can do and what I can't do. For me to be able to log in, or for me to be able to delete Moses and John, I need to log in as admin. So this is your homework in this lesson. I want you to come and log in into your system as admin. Okay, and then, and it's simple. Let me just show you. Let me close this one. To log in as admin, all you need to do is go to file and go to close company or log off. In this case, I'm logging off as Moses, so I can log in as admin. So come and close company or log off, and we are done. I'll log off, then I'll log in. We are opening this company, so click open, then I'll log in as admin. So I'm gonna type here admin. I didn't have password for admin, so just click OK. So now as admin, I can delete Moses and I can delete John. Let's close this, and let's close this. So now you go to company, come down to setup users and password, click setup users. Now I'm logged in as admin. I can click John and I can delete John. Okay, so if I click yes, John will be deleted, so click no. I can click Moses, select Moses and delete user. If I click yes, Moses will be deleted. Why? I have the admin rights to be able to do that, and I can also view them. I can also edit them. So what I want you to do is, I want you to log in as admin, and I want you to delete Moses, I want you to delete John, and I want you to add 3 more users. Give them different access rights. Practice and make sure you get this right. Also practice switching between multi-user and single user mode. Make sure that you are able to comfortably do that. And I'll see you in the next lesson as we dive into something else that's very, very important. So until then, get that practical exercise done. Add more users, 3 of them. Delete the current users that we have, and practice working with or switching between single mode and user mode. So close this one, and I'll see you in the next lesson as we dive into something totally new.